Story 34. A man professing to be a hermit in the desert of Syria attended for years to his devotions and subsisted on the leaves of trees. A Padshah who had gone in that direction by way of pilgrimage approached him and said, "If thou thinkest proper, we shall prepare a place for thee in the town where thou wilt enjoy leisure for thy devotions, and others may profit by thy spiritual advice as well as imitate thy good works." The hermit refused compliance, but the pillars of the state were of opinion that, in order to please the king, he ought to spend a few days in town to ascertain the state of the place, so that if he feared that the purity of his precious time might become turbid by association with strangers, he would still have the option to refuse compliance. It is related that the hermit entered the town where a private garden house of the king, which was a heart-expanding and soul-refreshing locality, had been prepared to receive him. Its red roses were like the cheeks of Bellas, its hyacinths like the ringlets of mistresses. Protected from the inclemency of midwinter, like sucklings who have not yet tasted the nurse's milk. Remember the thing, milk is ewe's milk, and milk is the cross-quarter point, few days into February. And this point is such that in the northern hemisphere, the temperature starts to rise. I mean, it's the hemisphere. Sometimes the colder days are before that point, sometimes they're after. In my area and everywhere else that I've lived, the days were a little bit before that. Except, some years, but I mean the general thing. But winter, like the Turkish immigrants have told me that their winter starts in, there's two ways that they can speak of winter. One is that starts in, it's the darker time of year, November to February. But some of them can talk about winter as including March too. So, it's, anyways, and branches with pomegranates upon them, fire suspended from the green trees. The king immediately sent him a beautiful slave girl. After beholding this hermit deceiving crescent moon, the form of an angel and the beauty of the peacock, after seeing her, it would be impossible to an anchorite's nature to remain patient. Well, no, whatever your temptation, your possibility of being sober, which is a broader word than patience, is there. Not that you don't close the little doors here and there to the greater sins, but after her, he sent likewise a slave boy of wonderful beauty and graceful placidity. People around him are dying with thirst, and he who looks like a cupbearer gives no drink. The sight cannot be satisfied by seeing him like the dropsical man near Euphrates. The hermit began to eat delicious food, to wear nice clothes, to enjoy fruit and perfumed confectionery, as well as to contemplate the beauty of the slave boy and girl in conformity with the maxim of wise men, who have said that the curls of bellies are fetters to the feet of the intellect and a snare to the sagacious bird. In thy service I lost my heart and religion with all my learning. I am indeed the sagacious bird, and thou the snare. In short, the happiness of his former time of contentedness had come to an end, as the saying is, in effect, pure aki. Oh, which letter H is it? But Pir and Marid, our pure-minded orator, descending into the base world, sticks in the honey like a fly. Once the king desired to visit him, but saw the hermit change from his former state, as he had become red, white, and corpulent. When the king entered, he beheld him reclining on a couch of gold brocade, whilst the boy and the fairy stood near his head with a fan of peacock feathers. He expressed pleasure to behold the hermit in so comfortable a position, conversed with him on many topics, and said, at the conclusion of the visit, I am afraid that these two classes of men in the world, scholars and hermits, the vizier, who was a philosopher and experienced in the affairs of the world, being present, said, O king, the conditions of friendship require thee to do good to both classes, bestow gold upon scholars that they may read more, but give nothing to hermits that they may remain hermits. A hermit requires neither dirhams nor dinars. If lie takes any, find another hermit. Who has a good behavior and a secret with God is an anchorite without the walk of bread or begged morsel, with a handsome figure and heart-ravishing ear tip. A girl is a bella without turquoise ring or pendants. I don't know what's that. The woman has ears that remind you of an elf, or what's the deal? Well, different people focus on different features, right? A dervish of good behavior and of happy disposition requires not the bread of rabbit or the begged morsel. A lady endowed with a beauteous form and chaste face requires no paint, adornment, or turquoise ring. Well, we often find that makeup actually breaks down the skin health and even leads towards more serious issues. But you can't necessarily look at the beauty and health and say, that's well behaved, right? As much as certain vices of eating and other behaviors, can affect the health in a bad way and accelerate aging, all that. But when I have and covet more, it will not be proper to call me an anchorite. Well, Islam doesn't have monkhood, for example, so that's where Sufism can differ at times, right? And the ear, right? The listening, right? Now, doesn't have to obey in everything, certainly, at least not what is outside of the good and fair. But a woman who listens is more important than a lot of things.